The medieval era in England was a turmoil time, a time of warrior kings and rebellious barons. But one king was named after a saint and had ambitions of becoming the next King Arthur, King of all Britain. This is the history of Edward I. Edward was born on the night of 17th to 18th of June 1239 at the Palace of Westminster. His parents were Henry III and Eleanor of Provence, and he was named after Edward the Confessor, to whom his father was devoted. Edward's health was of concern as a child, as he fell ill in 1246, 1247 and 1251. Edward overcame these illnesses and grew into an imposing man. At 6 feet 2 inches he towered over most, hence his names, Longshanks, meaning long legs. In 1254, English fears of a Castilian invasion in the province of Gascony forced King Henry to arrange a political marriage between the 15-year-old Prince Edward and Eleanor of Castile. On the 1st of November 1254, the two were married at the Abbey of Santa Maria la Real de las Helgas in Castile. Edward was involved from an early age in the political intrigues of his father's reign, which included a rebellion by the English barons. In 1259 he sided with the barons' reform movement, supporting the provisions of Oxford. After reconciliation with his father, he remained loyal throughout the subsequent armed conflict, known as the Second Barons' War. Simon de Montfort led the rebel barons, and the two armies met on the 14th of May 1264 at the Battle of Lewes. Henry III led the royal army personally, and was at first successful, as Prince Edward routed part of the baronial army with a cavalry charge. But Edward pursued the fleeing troops too far, leaving his father's forces exposed. De Montfort routed the king's army and captured both Henry and Edward. Edward was held hostage until 28th of May 1265, when he managed to escape. With de Montfort's support now dwindling, Edward joined up with the Earl of Gloucester, who had changed sides, and took Worcester and Gloucester with ease. On 4th of August 1265, Edward met with de Montfort's forces at the Battle of Evesham. De Montfort stood little chance against the superior royal forces and was defeated. De Montfort was killed, his body mutilated on the field, but even with de Montfort's death, the war continued until the Dictum of Kenilworth was agreed in 1267. The year after, Edward took the Crusaders' cross and committed himself to the Ninth Crusade, which was to be led by King Louis IX of France. On 20th of August 1270, Edward sailed from Dover to France with a force of 225 knights plus their retinues, which amounted to less than 1,000 men. After a brief pause in Tunis, Edward landed at Acre on the 9th of May 1271. His small force was a welcome sight, but they stood little chance against the Mamluks under the leadership of Baybars. In November 1271, Edward led a raid on Qaqqun, which could have served as a bridgehead to Jerusalem, but the attack failed, and the King of Jerusalem, Hugh III of Cyprus, signed a 10-year peace with Baybars. Edward, at first, was defiant of this truce, but an assassination attempt by the infamous Order of Assassins forced him to abandon any further campaigning. Although he managed to kill the assassin, Edward was struck in the arm by a dagger feared to have been poisoned, and he became severely weakened over the following months. It was not until the 24th of September 1272 that Edward left Acre, arriving in Sicily on the 16th of November, where he was met with the news of the death of his father. Edward was deeply saddened by this news and leisurely made his way to England, where he arrived on the 2nd of August 1274 and was crowned on the 19th at Westminster Abbey. Soon after the coronation, Edward set about restoring order and re-establishing royal authority after the disastrous reign of his father. Edward had a reputation of a fierce temper. One story tells of how the Dean of St. Paul's, wishing to confront Edward over high taxes in 1295, fell down and died once in the king's presence. Despite these frightening traits, Edward's contemporaries consider him an able king, even an ideal king. Edward had a keen interest in the stories of King Arthur, and like Arthur, Edward had ambitions of becoming king of all the Britons, and Edward's attention now turned to more military matters. After suppressing a minor rebellion in Wales in 1276–77, Edward responded to a second rebellion in 1282–83 with a full-scale war of conquest that subjected Wales. Then he built a series of towns and castles within the Welsh countryside to stamp his authority over Wales. With Wales secure, Edward saw his chance to subdue Scotland, as he was asked to intervene over a dispute of the Scottish succession. Edward then claimed feudal suzerainty over Scotland, which led to war. Edward invaded Scotland and stormed Berwick-upon-Tweed and defeated a Scottish army at the Battle of Dunbar on the 27th of April 1296. Edward left Scotland believing that he had completed his conquest, but resistance emerged under the leaderships of Andrew de Moray in the north and William Wallace in the south. On the 11th of September 1297, a large English force was routed at Stirling Bridge. This defeat sent shockwaves through England, and preparations for another campaign began immediately. On 22nd of July 1298, Edward defeated William Wallace's forces at the Battle of Falkirk. Despite this victory, Edward was unable to take advantage of the momentum, and the next year the Scots retook Stirling Castle. Stirling Castle would change hands twice more as periods of war broke out, and it is clear by Edward's harsh treatment of Robert the Bruce family that he saw the conflict not as a war between two nations, but as a war of suppression against rebels. The incessant warfare put great demands on Edward's subjects, which made him unpopular. In order to fill his coffers and wipe out many nobles' debts, he issued the Edict of Expulsion in 1290, which the Jews were expelled from all England. In February 1307, Robert the Bruce started gathering men, and in May defeated an English army at the Battle of Loudon Hill. Edward mustered his army and moved north. On the way, he developed dysentery, and his condition quickly deteriorated. On the 6th of July, Edward encamped at Borough-by-Sands, and on the morning of the 7th, he died in his servant's arms. According to one story, he requested that his heart be carried to the Holy Land, another that his bones should be carried north on future expeditions against the Scots. Edward's body was carried south and lay in state at Waltham Abbey before being buried at Westminster Abbey. His inscription on his tomb reading, "Here is Edward I, Hammer of the Scots, 1308, keep the vow."